The Glen brought us some great racing last week, but it did highlight one fact: it's also super close. David Gaspers was able to hold off Foreign Arabia, both of whom were able to skillfully battle from start to finish, and another race that both drivers would be very proud of. With the continued pressure of no drop weeks for Gaspers, he will need to continue beating out Arabian wherever he can. Will he continue to do so, or will Charlotte throw a surprise for the two frontrunners? You'll see it all happen live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Robert O'Brien, and with me today in the booth is Ossian Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Charlotte Roval with the Legends RC layout is quite a technical track with plenty of action on the infield. It is 40 minutes length race with a 1.53 mile track length per lap, and it is going to be very difficult for these guys, Ossian, I think.
It is going to be incredibly difficult, Robert, and I'll tell you why. Not only is it a tight, twisty technical circuit at 2.5 Ks, 1.5 miles in length, but it's also got a lot of banked corners. Now, when you imagine a car with such a short wheelbase, like the Formula V, with all the weight in the rear, it's gonna want to spin around. It's gonna want to go around in a very easy manner. Now, in a banked corner, you're already trusting the car a lot. You're like really having to throw it in there and really have to trust the grip. So you're balancing on a very narrow margin of grip here. And I think we're gonna see a lot of drivers fall victim to trying just a little bit too hard, and that of course makes it all the more exciting.
Indeed it will, and we'll be able to absolutely dig into the details once we get around. But before that, we'll have a look at what the setup will be like for the race itself, which will be interesting to see how it'll play into today's race, because we've seen a lot of tracks, you know, the Glen being a very open, very wide track for plenty of 3 wides in slipstream, but the format is still the same. Round 10 of a 40-minute race with 1 fuel stop that is due to limited fuel, and it is a open setup. Before all that, though, we do have to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ringfree. It is a unified VoIP for your essential business. Find out more at ringfree.com. Choose connection. Leading into the round 10, we do have the S1 standings. Foreign Arabian pipping the post of David Gaspers on total points, but the drop weeks are very important. David Gaspers still leads Foreign Arabian with drop weeks inclusive. And it is going to be interesting to see how he deals with the added pressure that the rounds are starting to tick down now. Only 3 rounds, including this race. Mairo Haraski in 3rd. Greg Stefani pushing up the order into 4th, with Matt Orr in 5th. Ossian, you have the Season 2 or the S2 standings?
Yes, it is Thomas Renders in the lead with 549 points. Simon Mayer in 2nd place, 129 points behind. Then you got Johan Buitenga just breathing into his neck, Flavio Andallo 4th, and Ian Gibson 5th.
And we just have the grid starting off. We have Foreign Arabia down in 3rd, but David Gaspers and Hauke Horvath in the top row. Foreign Arabian, as I said, in 3rd, Flavio Andallo 4th, Ian Gibson in 5th, Thomas Renders in 6th, Kenneth Batley in 7th, Leroy Coppage in 8th, Johan Patenga in 9th, Jim Brewster in 10th.
And then you got Theo Taylor, Chris Montgomery, Antonio Rees, Tom Gradwell, Alexander Gorissen, Nicholas Morelli, David Davidson, Mats Scherblom, and Alexander Logenbach, rounding out the 19 driver field.
It's actually been quite constant over the last 3 races. 19 to 21st. We do have the Masters. Tom Gradwell sitting on top at 461, with Kenneth Batley in 2nd, Leroy Coppage in 3rd, Rob Hopp in 4th, and Mike Taylor in 5th. Now, Tom Gradwell is actually doing pretty well for himself. He still does have the possibility of a drop round kicking him down the pecking order, but if he continues to put in good points, he should be safe to go. what are your thoughts as we just lead around the pace lap, Ocean?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really have any thoughts. It's first time I'm watching this series. So I just hope all of the people are gonna have a great and enjoyable race, and we don't see those multi-car incidents on first lap that some series very much like here in Charlotte. I think it's gonna be a very exciting race from multiple standpoints, and for a lot of these people as well, a great introduction to this circuit, which is one of the more underrated venues on iRacing.
Indeed it is, actually. I was hoping that the tight corners wouldn't pose too much of a threat, but you can see here, this long sweeping left-hander is going to prove quite a challenge, as we saw the last week at the Glen. The outer ring pass coming from outer ring or the outer loop into the inner loop, it wasn't actually very effective. Drivers were actually caught out quite a lot, so it'll be interesting to see if any lessons were learned for that, as we do come up to the start. As the pace car pulls off, the drivers do have a little kink to navigate through as they come backwards onto the banked curve, and off they go. That is the green flag as we start to get racing with the car 21 at the helm.
Great start from David Kaspers, and in the second place you're going to see Florence Arabian already overtaking Rocco Horvath as well.
And getting down and to the fight as Rocco Horvath losing a position already to Florence Arabian. A little bit of puff of smoke from the exhausts coming there from David Kaspers. Kenneth Batley losing time. He's actually lost a hell of a lot of positions. He's actually towed.
Wow. And just to report you, as these guys are going side by side, there were spins further at the back, but otherwise a clean start for most of these drivers as they continue racing. Look at Arabian, just trying to hold on to the inside, trying to keep that line constant, but cannot hold Rocco Horvath back, who takes the second place, the place where he started from, back from the hands of Florence Arabian. And this is all good news for David Kaspers, Robert.
Indeed it is, because he's able to keep his main rival, Florence Arabian, as far away as he possibly can, while trying to gain as much of a gap as he possibly can with the
Ian Gibson. I'm sorry, Ian Gibson just spun from the fourth place right in the first lap, and so that's a single car incident, and that's already what I was talking about earlier on. You know, the banked corners, and he was just leaning a little bit too much into it. Here we're gonna see the replay. He's gonna cut nicely and hit the curb on the inside, sending it into a slide, and he just cannot hold on to it and spins to the inside. Thankfully not hitting anything, but losing a lot of time and hurting his ego for sure.
Oh, it's not a great thing when you have a one-car incident and you're set there. Nothing damaged on your car, but it's a big old confidence hit. In Horvath's case, though, he's riding the hype train, really, because he's actually pulled out a slight bit of a gap between himself and Florence Arabian. A nice little cushion that he needs, and he's just keeping Florence Arabian exactly where he needs to, as in behind him, and he's going to try and take it to Kaspers. But is it worth it at this early stage to try and attack if you're Horvath, or stick where you are?
I think at this point in a race, you're just trying to get through your bearings and, you know, settle down after the early battles. He was side by side for a long time with Florence Arabian, but I think we saw on the first lap his desire to hold on to that place and his desire to attack. He didn't want to battle, but also crucially, he didn't settle behind Florence Arabian, which would have been very easy to do. He could have just given up the position and settled behind Arabian, but he did not do that, and I think he might have the pace, as we see a great battle here in the midfield.
Yeah, just a three-way battle between David Davidson and Antonio Rees, and that is going to be Matt Schlobum. Oh, crikey, that is Matt Schlobum. He's just spun around the banked curve again. It's struck, and it's actually caught another person out. A one-car incident. See the replay.
Yeah, his surname means snowflower in Swedish, and he certainly went blowing there on the outside of that corner. You can see him just turning it, flicking it in a little bit too fast and hitting another driver as well in the progress of that incident. So once again, you can see the cars being very loose on the entry of the corner, and once you turn in, that's the time when these cars are gonna be at their weakest. You feel like you're kind of on a knife edge constantly, and that's what can happen so easily.
That was, by the way, that was the car of 914 Antonio Rees. He is out, and he has actually towed the car, as has Matt Schlublum. He is also towed. We're back with Rocco Horvath, and he is still, he's kind of now reached equilibrium. There's equal gap either side of him now, and he sees the car ahead of him of David Gaspers. Not getting any closer, not getting any further, but it is interesting to see the difference between the two. Nice tight line by Rocco Horvath, a slightly wider line by David Gaspers. For these kinds of bank curves, as you said before, you have to be very careful as you go through them. Which would you prefer for these kind of bank curves?
In banked corners, I usually try to take the wide line, just because you can carry a little bit more speed by taking the wide line, especially if there's a little bit of progression in that banking. So in a low-powered car such as this, I try to usually take the wide line because it allows you to take the wide line. And also on the inside, when you cut it too tight, it's very easy to hit that sort of a little bit of an apron that you have even in these road course turns. You have a bit of an apron on the inside, and when you hit that, it can very easily unsettle the car. It unsettles bigger cars, and it can certainly unsettle a Formula V. So I take wide line just for the caution of it, but really it comes down to your personal preference and what you're feeling comfortable with.
Now, getting comfortable with is going to be the middle name of Johan Batenga. He's settled in very nice and neatly into 7th position as he tries to get around the cars that he has to get around, really, to get into a place where he feels he needs to be, which is up towards the top 5. And we can just see here he is just having to battle with Jim Brewster, not in class now, but he is doing very well for having to get past the few incidents that were happening in the middle of the field involving the likes of Batley and Rogan Buck, and Matt Schlublum gained 2 positions from there and is now battling Jim Brewster. 10 seconds to the leader though. I don't think he's actually too fussed about that. I think he just wants the points, and just see just the sheer lack of gap between himself and Brewster. It is going to be an interesting battle of wits to see who got the best lining. Very interesting by Johan, wide in, narrow out.
Yeah, and he was trying to essentially get a crossover on the exit of the corner. He was looking at Jim, and Jim was taking a very tight line in the corner, kind of like diamonding it, was Jim Brewster there. And it's a very, very easy mistake to make when you're running behind someone. You're looking at, okay, they're taking a tight line, they're going to be wide on the exit. They can't get the power down on the exit, what little power these cars have anyway. And I'm just going to overtake him on the exit of the corner on that little straight, but that didn't happen because Jim did a great job of keeping the car in control and getting a good exit. And Johan ultimately didn't have the speed back then, but he certainly has the speed now.
Yeah, Johan Batenga having almost gotten side by side fully with Jim Brewster on turn 7. Coming into 8 into 9 now. This is going to be 10 into 11. 11 is an absolutely sweeping left-hander, and it is lethal to try and go around the outside of this, and it is going to slow people down as they have to essentially follow each other like a train going around into 12. And these are the danger corners because you can really gain some speed through here, and then getting into 1 you can actually outbrake yourself. Does Johan Batenga look on the inside? He does. He's looking very directly on the inside of Jim Brewster, but Jim Brewster, wide line coming in and nicely tucking in, holding off Johan Batenga very effectively.
Yeah, he did a great job of anticipating that Johan is not going to outbrake himself in there, and did a very brave job of turning into that corner and essentially shutting the door, despite Batenga being very close and almost in a blind spot. But once again, you can see Johan being very effective on the early parts of this circuit, and he's getting these nice crossover lines following Jim Brewster, and one little mistake by Jim and he's going to see Johan alongside him in a short order. But so far, great defensive driver by the 933.
It is going to be annoying though for Johan Batenga. He's trying to get past, but he's being very effectively held up. Ooh, on the inside, he looks very cautiously though. He's looking very cautiously because the next corner is a very dangerous one to try and hold the too wide, especially in anything really. That draft up the hill and around to the right, it can actually upset a lot of cars, and these Formula Vs we've seen in this race by itself, there is, oh crikey, very close indeed. goes Johan. He has a threat of Chris Montgomery. He's now turned into a three-way as Gaspers himself at the front there, just starting to scream away.
Yeah, he's doing a great job of pulling away from everybody. 1.6 seconds now, the gap 1.7. But in this battle that we are following, if Johan Butenga can't get past Brewster, he's gonna have the threat of Chris Montgomery being very real. He's been inching closer and closer, and he's gonna look to the inside in turn number 2, not gonna commit there just yet. But it could be a possibility. Oh, and that's Butenga into the outside wall and making a hard hit into the tire barrier. Doesn't look like there's too much damage at this point in time, but stay tuned because that could be very, very crucial to the development of his race and running a little bit wide here. I'm not sure if that's more of a consequence of his concentration, maybe letting go a little bit, or is there some damage?
Yeah, these cars are not conducive to taking damage whatsoever. Those exposed wheels, as we can see right there, they are the only things that are protecting you from hitting the outside wall, and they're the kind of things you don't want to hit in the first place. That exposed suspension is going to be very easily torn off by a scrape of the wall or a bump into the wall, and he needs to keep it as close to the center of the tarmac as he possibly can, or as close to the racing line without drifting out too much. This is now a four-way battle. As we can see, Chris Montgomery is joined by another friendo of that is going to be Nicholas Morelli in the car 714, and we can just see how big of a smile I'm pretty sure Nicholas is going to have on his face. Started 16th, he's now 9th, and he's got 3 more potentials of overtaking right in front of him. I'd say he's going to be absolutely chuffed with that.
Oh, he absolutely will. And look at that livery. It's a Leighton House livery. It's a Formula 1 livery from the late 80s, turn of the 90s. The March team, as it was also known, Leighton House being a Japanese company that bought the naming rights during the turn of the century. And if I do remember right, they did have one very certain Adrian Newey as one of their designers back then.
The Prestige and the Protege. And where is he now? He's making absolutely great Formula 1 cars, but this is sort of the genesis, really, of a driver's world, the Formula Vs. Get you into open wheel racing and at a very good price, and the racing that can get out of these, we've seen on the Formula V Weekend Warriors, for instance, it's been absolutely great. Very tight, very good pack racing, but very respectable. And you can see here, this is the man that is creating that. Jim Brewster, for lap after lap for the last 10 minutes, has been very effectively defending against Johan Butenga. Butenga just does not have the response necessary to try and overtake. So we go again for another lap. We're just going into lap 9 out of a possible 29. 40-minute race, of course, but just over a minute and 25 seconds is the fastest lap we have on the last lap. So it is going to be 29. As we see in the background, that is going to be Chris Montgomery and Nicholas Morelli doing battle. And again, it's too wide in front of them. That is going to be 2x2s. It has started to happen.
It is happening. It's all happening. Butenga looking to the outside of Jim Brewster, and meanwhile, further behind them, Montgomery has got ahead of Morelli, but Morelli is coming back on a nice crossover move, and I think he's going to get that position. And Butenga's finally passed Jim Brewster, so it's finally happened. All happening here, and he's taking the 6th place away, and Morelli is going to inherit that 8th place, but there's still a great battle going on between him and Chris Montgomery, which has now just settled. So, Robert, all of these happening at the same time, and that's the great thing about Formula V racing, and Ian Gibson is looking like, this looks like fun, I might join in.
It's turned into a 5-person race almost between the 5 of these guys. 6th through to 9th and 10th now joining in on the battle. Ian Gibson on the back end of Chris Montgomery's car number 333 as he looks onto the right hand side of Nicholas Morelli as to come towards the kink of turn 12 into 13, keeping it nice and tidy. That is going to be Ian Gibson on the outside coming past the line into 1. As they go into reverse and into what would be the pits actually on the full track. And, it's quite disconcerting if you have if you've raced normally on the oval or on the road course. Going through the pits at a racing speed is very concerning for you, but trust me, it is the proper line as we come through turn 2 into 3. sweeping. I think that's what I will call this. Very sweeping corners. Never really any square corners, very sweeping corners.
Yeah, it is. And as we're jumping to the leaders real quick, we can see a development in there. David Gasper's still leading, but his gap down to 1 second ahead of Rocco Horvath. The reason is that on lap number 9, David Gaspers had a little bit of a slower lap. I looked through it on our tape and he didn't make any major mistakes. He just had a slower lap. And I was gonna say he was coming across some lap traffic, but Gennett Batley really bailing out of that one, so doesn't want to slow down the leaders. Let's see the lap times here. David Gaspers 1:24.85 and Rocco Horvath 1:24.86. So you can see these guys are really close to each other, both in terms of lap times and still in terms of track time. And we still have over 20 minutes to go in this race.
The worst thing is that is going to be to the detriment of Florence Arabian. He's actually drifting backwards at quite a pace. He was actually just over half a second slower on that last lap against these two, the car 21 and the car number 14. And the gap between these two, I think Gaspers really needs sort of that extra pressure just to get him to get that extra 2/10 or 3/10 that he needs to be really, really fast. He still holds the fastest lap of a 1:24.697, but he just needs to keep good control. And we do have the lead of amateur class. That is car 200 to 899. Thomas Renders in 4th position, being chased by a fellow amateur of Flavio Andolo, who has put in a good race so far. But the two of them are going to battle now, and it's constant throughout the entire grid. Battles, as we see Thomas Renders having to hold off through a very technical part of the track. He was having trouble in the last few races, but I think he's found his footing.
He has, and he is in a very solid 4th place, especially for an amateur driver. We actually saw some issues for Andalo, some technical issues as well, which has caused him to drop back a little bit further. So a little bit of an update for that in case you were wondering. And Thomas Renders in a 4th place, he's doing a great job, and he's in a beautiful car as well. And we're following actually, going back to that car. Yeah, we are doing that now. I really, really love that livery. It's got those fighter pilot eyes on the side of it, you know, those evil eyes sort of thing. That kind of No Fear, I think, was the brand that used that a lot in the 90s and early 2000s. I remember that from there. And then you got these colors, black, yellow and red. When you put those together in a car livery, it cannot fail. If you fail with those 3 colors in your livery, then you have no eyes.
I'll make that note. But we do have one thing to say about Rocco Horvath. He definitely does have the No Fear in his middle name, because he is absolutely closing that gap towards David Gaspers, closing it very effectively. Actually, he did put in 2/10 against David Gaspers and is closing in now, and will have the slipstream for what is it's a straight, except it has a little kink in the middle. But he will have to close. He'll have time to close the gap in between turns 11 and turn 1 on the next lap. But just see how tightly they have to sort of take it around turn 1. I would have imagined they would have had a lot more space, but it is actually about as much as they can carry through that turn. And you can just see turn 2 being the only real square corner they have, and everything else is sweeping. So I wonder who will we see to hit the wall, or in other words, who could hit the wall, you know, trying to make an overtake or trying to carry as much speed as possible through any of the turns.
Anyone? Oh, you wanted a long answer, right? You wanted me to speak, do my job. Okay, so Rocco Horvath is looking very, very steady right now behind Gaspers, and he's not in a position to really lose anything either, because he can just now he's caught up to him. He knows that he has a little bit more pace potentially than Gaspers. It's not much of a difference. They're pretty much trading lap times, but Gaspers has made a couple of mistakes earlier on. Rocco Horvath really hasn't made any mistakes. He had aggressive first lap battle with Florence Arabian that he came absolutely the better driver out of, and now he's just sitting in the slipstream trying to get a little bit closer, and he's still got 21.5 minutes to work out an overtake, and that's a lot of time, especially with these cars. I love these little Formula Vs, by the way. I've grown to really love them, seeing them dart around the track. But yeah, he doesn't look too bothered to me. He looks to me like he's in a bit of comfort zone almost, just following the leading driver, knowing how much of a risk David Gaspers is taking each and every lap, and just you know, matching that. He's got the help of slipstream, which means he doesn't have to push quite as hard, and then he has time to think. He has time to think, where am I going to put on the move, where am I going to be stronger, where am I potentially being weaker, so at which point is it ideal for me to put on a little bit of a move. And he also has racing experience from the first lap, so he knows which lines could potentially work at which corners. And once again, you're seeing David Gaspers going very wide there, and that's one of those mistakes that's going to allow Rocco Horvath to get ever closer.
And another thing as well is Florence Arabian, he's still falling backwards. 126, 104 on that last lap. He's lost another 1.5 seconds. He's now 5 seconds behind this group and is still falling backwards at a pace that he should not be. I know he can be as fast as Gaspers, and the two of them have been absolutely battling it out over the last 3 races, but it's just seemingly all gone wrong. The parts are all not there for him this time around. But we do still want to pay attention to Horvath, because he's creeping ever so closer to the gearbox and the engine bay of David Gaspers, and he's getting very close right now.
His turn, the turn 1 he just took was incredible there. Like, he went right from the outside, sweeping to the inside, absolute line perfection, still leaving him a little bit of room on the exit. Didn't want to slide too wide on that pit lane, because the concrete wall is really an unhappy surprise. But here, this corner right here is where he's at his stronger. This very section, full of those sweeping corners. As you said, it's a very sweeping track, full of those sweeping corners, and he's just able to judge his speed perfectly each and every time, judge his line. Once again, cutting the curb real nice. You can see on board of him as well how he's working. There isn't a single excess motion in that steering wheel. It's just guiding the car gently towards the apex of the corner, picking up the throttle at the right point, keeping it nice and balanced, nice and steady, cutting a little bit of crosshair, maybe experimenting a little bit. It's all looking very relaxed to me. And even with the lack of power, these are not relaxing cars to drive, Robert, but it's looking very relaxed and very confident to me, and that's always a great sign in a racing driver. That means they're in the comfort zone. They don't have to think, they just do.
Exactly. With these kinds of occurrences as well, it is down to the driver and how they make the most out of the machine, because there's not much in terms of aero or other mechanical stuff we can do to these cars. It is basically get in and go. And with Gaspers holding the P1, he'll be fine. But down in P7, Jim Brewster is now found another person to keep behind him. Ian Gibson has fallen back, but we do have Nicholas Morelli trying to get through the field, and he's trying to join Johan Botega in 6th position. Nicholas is doing very well, caught right up to the back end of Jim Brewster, who lost 4/10 to the car number 714 as he makes a very wide sweeping move into 2. It's a very odd position to be making a move. He does make it though.
I wonder if Brewster was letting him through there, because that looked like a very easy move to me. And I don't know, I mean, I was looking at Brewster and he didn't seem to make any big mistakes, maybe having to lift a little bit on the exit, and that's why Morelli got such a good exit, but Brewster didn't look like fighting that too hard. I don't know if he didn't want to fight that too hard, or if he was just, you know, not getting the opportunity to do so. But either way, a good move from Morelli, and that allows him to now get behind Botega. And he was actually 3/10 faster than Botega last time around, so slipstream could play an effect to that. So we'll have to see how the lap times progress, but the gap between those two guys, it's 3 seconds, and that's definitely within the realm of plausible to catch over these last 17 minutes.
We do still have pit stops because it is a fuel limited race. Now it is going to be in the minds of these guys, Gaspers and Horvath. Arabian really does need the absolute pit stop of his life to be able to claw back what is now gone up to 6 seconds. There is definitely something wrong with that car, or he's just not getting his corners just exactly right. And now Rocco Horvath is really starting to pile on the pressure. He's just ever so slightly turning the screws ever so tighter to try and put Gaspers in an uncomfortable position. And he's trying to probe where Gaspers is in terms of comfort zone. I think, remember when he said that Horvath, correction, was in his comfort zone, doing very well, gliding through corners, being very confident with the car. I don't think Gaspers is now he's more so in the hot seat, I would say.
Yeah, and he's taking the pit stop, and I think that's a great decision by David Gaspers right now. Okay, he's doing it a little bit early, maybe he could have gone on 1 lap longer, maybe 2 laps longer, but he is now in the pits, and which is a very weird place for a pit lane, because of course the normal Charlotte pit lane is part of the course here, and he's back on track, so that's a great job by David Gaspers. He's getting out of the pressure, he's putting it out of his hands and putting the pressure onto Florence Arabian. Rocco Horvath, of course, who's now inherited the lead. So we'll see if Rocco Horvath comes to pits this time around, or if he has some more fuel left in his tank.
And just behind them is going to be the cars of Nicholas Moreira and Ian Gibson going to battle for 8th position. Ian Gibson having a mistake of some variety, because that was a very quick... Oh no, correction, it was been Nicholas Morelli having the mistake on that last lap, because he was ahead of Jim Brewster on that occasion and he must have had a mistake on the last lap to be 1:26.232 on the last lap. Ian Gibson climbing back the pecking order to try and seal the deal, but it is a surprise for Nicholas.
Yeah, it sure is. He was looking so confident out there, looking great out there, and then just having well, he just had to essentially let Jim Brewster by, and now he's so he just had to let Jim Brewster by once again, and Brewster, I guess, found a second window of some sorts and was able to catch up to Morelli, who made that easy overtake earlier on. So it's well, it just goes to show you that anything can happen in a race, and it usually does. So we can't ever make these predictions out there that will turn out to be 100% correct.
Jim Brewster, lead of the Masters class. I'd say he probably would want to just keep it comfortable out there. I mean, he's in a very good spot. He's ahead of Ian Gibson, who would be his... Oh, correction, Ian Gibson would not be his closest. It would actually be Coppage who would be his closest. And I'd say he's got a nice gap between himself and Coppage, so...
Oh, I'm sorry, Buitenga. Can we go to 664, because he just made a mistake in turn number 2, and he's around on the track, and that's a single car incident, and we are going to get a replay of that one right away. So he's approaching into turn number 2, taking a wide line, nice line, just going a little bit too fast, and yep, to the outside tire barrier, hitting the wall once again, and that goes to prove your earlier point, Robert. That's what you don't want to happen.
Yeah, Johan Buitenga, that is a very hard knock on the wall, on both sides of the wall actually, so he has... If he's not got damage, he is the luckiest man. Oh, no, I do see right hand front is damaged. But Rocco, now in P1, is still extending the gap between himself and Florence Arabian. Florence Arabian did a 1:25.7 on the last lap. Rocco Horvath is just put in a 1:25.036. Sorry, it's actually worse for Florence Arabian. He lost a second on that last lap. It is not working out for Florence. It has to be some damage or something. But the main key thing, David Gaspers, how is he doing? 1:25, 2:25 on the last lap. He's just about to cross the line. I think he is. Actually, what's this lap?
Oh no! Gaspers! I'm sorry, David Gaspers has just crashed in turn number 2.
And it's all gone.
Oh my word.
I think I should stop mentioning their names because I've just cursed them. I just cursed the man, and we can just see it here. Turn 2 has just claimed another incident, and just way too wide into the tires and into the wall. And oh, another car coming by just hits him just forever. Oh crikey, that's Flavio Ndolo. He's lost the wheel. That's terminal damage. He'll have to come in.
And Gaspers as well. He's his left front tire, his left front reshort, I suppose, is collapsed, and he's going way wide in these corners as well. So I think Gaspers is out too, and that's gonna throw the championship way upside down. I mean, it's like Diana Ross song, "Upside Down You Turn Me," and that's a championship here at Charlotte. So it's gonna be a drop week for a couple of these guys, and that's gonna then promote, I believe, after the pit stops has cycled, Thomas Renders up into second place.
And
potentially.
And Foreign's Arabian cheering in his cockpit, I imagine, because he will have a drop week on hand that David Gaspers has not. David Gaspers has already not raced 3 races so far, so he'll have no drop weeks and no safety net. David Gaspers is in a very tight pickle right now because of this man, Foreign's Arabian. Having raced all the races of the season so far, he is absolutely going to have the win in the bag if he continues to keep racing. That's all he needs to do. Keep racing, keep racing. We'll know for sure once it comes to the final round of how things line, who needs to go where. But I would say right now, David Gaspers is not going to be a very happy cookie. He is going to be very annoyed that the tire wall exists right there.
Yeah, I mentioned to you before the race, before we went to live, over under on how many drivers will hit the outside wall on turn number 2. And right now, I think the count is official count for what we caught on air is 3.
Yeah.
We
3,
didn't put an over under
yeah.
there though. But another point I would quite like to make. I mean, Foreign's Arabian, we were looking at his pace earlier on, wondering if he's a little bit slower than we perhaps expected. He lost a lot of time early on, but I think this race has proven to be one of his 7 pillars of wisdom here for the Foreign's of Arabia, in that he's really slowly made himself a great result. He hasn't been really in any battles after lap number 1, after we saw him in that great battle, and then later on he just basically raced his race, being in his comfort zone, and if that comfort zone is a couple of tenths a lap slower than the leaders, then so be it. But it's a very clever race for him.
Exactly, yeah. So comfortable race is what Foreign's Arabian is having in P2, so he's doing very good. It's not going to be comfortable in P4. Jim Brewster having to lead around Nicholas Morelli and Ian Gibson, and the 3 of them are absolutely going at it. They were going at it in the actual pits of the Charlotte, but they are leaving each other just a smidgen of room, but not much more, because Nicholas Morelli having to try and get past Jim Brewster again. It is all gone wrong. Oh, it's all gone wrong for him again. Very wide coming into, that is turn number 5 and into 6. You have to correct that just a little smidgen, and he's now lost 6th position.
And just a quick notification, Jim Brewster is now in 4th place.
I mean, I think you'd be pretty happy with that. So that would mean our top 5 is covered by all 3 classes then. Both S1, S2 and the Masters. S1 being numbers 1 to 199, S2 being 200 and 899, and the Masters being all 900 numbers. And the lead is now firmly in Rocco Horvath's hands, 11 seconds ahead of Foreign's Arabian. Foreign's I think he's slowed down further. He's lost another second to Rocco Horvath. It's 11 seconds now, the gap. So essentially, Rocco has a nice, neat pit to hand, really, in terms of gap, and he can just take his time, go at his own pace. Foreign's Arabian, as you said, Ossian, he is going at his own pace, so it's all a case of it's all quiet on the top 3 front, and of course Thomas Renders in 3rd, leading amateur, ahead of the closest rival, which would be Ian Gibson, who is 20 seconds back.
Yeah, it's all a little bit of a waiting game in the top 3 right now. None of them are really in a position to do anything about anyone else, so it's just putting your nice slippers on, putting on a nice cardigan, and maybe going out the patio and just drinking the last of the summer wine, I suppose. It's all very comfortable, it's all very relaxing. Put some Bach on, why not? Enjoy the summer evening. In case you're wondering about those classes, dear viewers, the Pro, as Robert explained, the Pro numbers 0 to 199 means the drivers have 3,000 or more iRating. So their iRating calculation, their driver rating is more than 3,000. The amateurs means just less than 3,000 iRating. So you can have a driver with 2,950 being in a different class than someone with 3,020. So they can be pretty close. And then the masters, well, I don't want to be cruel here. Don't take this the wrong way, but the last of the summer wine class, which is drivers 60 and over.
Well, if they're the last of the summer wine, there's some very good wine regardless.
Indeed.
Jim Brewster is absolutely gunning it out there and holding on Ian Gibson very effectively. He's been the defense master of the race, to be honest. He's been defending very well. He's not, as I said before, it's all been very nice and neat throughout the race for the top 5 anyway, and I would say Jim Brewster is probably the neatest because he didn't have to, he's not really actively defending, he's more taking his natural line, but his natural line is also very defensive, and it's actually keeping the likes of Morelli, Gibson up and up, and it's losing them time to the people they want to be racing with.
Fine wine, I think we should call it. You know what they say about fine wine.
It's always the best. Indeed, indeed.
It's better with age.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with you. And what's even better than that is the fact that Brewster is now 3 positions ahead of Bradwell, who is a very hefty 15-16 seconds back behind him. So when they come to the pit stop, and the top 8 have yet to pit, and so they're leaving it very late. The top 8 have yet to pit, so they'll be coming in at a flurry in the last 5 minutes, which is going to be a hold your breath home, because that pit stop is actually very abrupt.
Yeah, I think that's a correct way to put it. It doesn't feel natural around here, does it? Because usually when you come into the pit lane, you're just turning in before the last corner in most of the circuits. Then you just come into this narrow pit lane, you slow down to the pit speed limit. In these cars isn't much under the normal speed which these are going, in fairness, because top speed really isn't their game. And then you slow down, take a pit stop, quick pit stop, and then you return. But here you can see it's a very abrupt stop into some blue paint. Rocco Horvath is doing it right now, and I think he is doing a great job. And then he gets back and he gets tossed right back onto the oval. So drivers behind, they have to be very aware that there is a driver coming out of the pit lane, but that went very well for Rocco Horvath. It's gonna promote Florence Arabian briefly into the lead, but I think that's gonna be very short-lived, as Arabian yet has to do his pit stop.
Ian Gibson, promoted in third, has yet to do his pit. So Jim Brewster, Thomas Renders, and Rocco Horvath, the 3 of them have pitted. We still do have 5 remaining to pit.
Sorry, Jim Brewster is actually in the pit lane right now.
I do think he's actually had a mistake, because he is 3 seconds slower than the others, but he's still ahead. That's the key thing now. He's still ahead of Leroy Coppage. So he is still the lead of Masters. And it's going to be... Paying attention to this man, Florence Arabian. He is going to... we say this sort of tentatively. He will lose the position to Rocco Horvath. With 3 minutes to go, he has extended that tank to the absolute edge. Unless he's actually gone even further. I wonder if he's actually gone far enough. That thought's just entered my head.
Oh no, he's coming to the pit lane. Ooh, I was thinking
I was about to say, if he's managed to extend that limited fuel tank to a whole entire race, I would have just jumped out of my seat and given him a clap, because that was some very good craftsmanship. But no, he'll have to come into the pits. 2 minutes and 35 seconds left to go. 2 more laps in it, tentatively speaking, but Rocco Horvath promoted back up into P1, Florence Arabian back into P2, Ian Gibson P3 yet to pit. Now, it isn't all over. The checkered flag hasn't waved, and so that it means Theo Taylor is still under pressure as he battles for 10th position against Chris Montgomery. It is for class, and it is for points, and any points count, especially at this stage of the season. And 2 very nice liveries, but it's not going to matter. They're going to have to battle for position.
they will. And one of the two Australian drivers in the grid as well. One is Theo Taylor, other is Tom Gradwell, and Theo Taylor certainly sporting those colors, the forest green and the gold, here proudly presented on this car as they come what might just be the last lap of this race, or at least the penultimate lap of this race. Chris Montgomery trying to hunt him down, trying to find that position, and last time around Chris was around 0.6 of a second faster, so he definitely has the pace, but does he have the move on these closing laps?
It is going to be interesting to see if the car of Montgomery does have a second win. He's able to close back the gap coming to 10th. Theo Taylor, though, he's been running a quiet race, and it's now gotten very unquiet. It's actually gotten very loud because there's another car behind him threatening for 10th. I'd say he'd want to keep that 10th position, but there's nothing to sort of keep him nice and cozy. There is a car ahead of him. It's going to be Johan Petanga, but he isn't going to have too much to, you know, suppress any movement from the car number 333. But car number 14 doing very well, 12 now 13 seconds ahead of Florence Arabian, and it is going to be the white flag next time by, I think. No, correction, I think no, just about. I think he'll have the white flag as they cross the line with just 20 seconds to go on the clock. No, correction, this is the white flag lap because the timer has just ticked down to 13 seconds, 12, 11, 10. Yep, it'll be white flag, and the checker flag is coming up, and this man, exceptionally smooth, keeping it nice and tidy, Rocco Horvath, is your race winner for round 10 here at the Legends RC at Charlotte. Well done to you, Rocco Horvath. A big, huge congratulations to you, sir.
Indeed, he's done very well in this race. Just done a couple of races earlier on this season, actually. Only 2 races at, I believe, Okayama and Zandvoort. So this is his third, and this is his first win of the season. Congratulations, well deserved. We saw Florence Arabian coming second, and Ian Gibson rounding out your podium here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, with Thomas Renders winning the amateur class. So, and Nicholas Morelli as well coming home in 5th place. He had himself a very varied race, but in the end was able to snatch home a top 5. But man, what a race it was, Robert. What a race it was. It was kind of what we predicted, in a sense that there were a few single car incidents, and we still have a battle going on.
Yeah, we still have a battle. Theo Taylor and Chris Montgomery, they have seen the white flag, but they're still going at it like it is absolutely the first lap. And unfortunately, Theo Taylor just pips the post to Chris Montgomery. And just to say, by the way, it wasn't Thomas Renders that won for amateur. Ian Gibson, who did not pit, won. But we'll just go to a quick break. Don't go away. We'll be back with interviews and the post-race analysis. Welcome back, everybody, to the Global SimRacing Channel and the coverage of round 10 of the Formula V Weekend Warriors, sponsored by Ring Free. Now, we've just absolutely witnessed a great race for the ages, and unfortunately, one particular name comes up. The unfortunate crash of David Gaspers brings Rocco Horvath to first position, and the car number 14, I'm pretty sure, had a few celebratory victory laps just there while we're on ad break, but a very good second place for Florence Arabian. Very nice and neat. Not the fastest car out there, but slow and steady, actually came second today. Ian Gibson, having done no pit stops, a surprise third place, with Thomas Renders thinking to himself in fourth position, I could have done that. Nicholas Morelli, after insane amount of battles with Jim Brewster, finally wins out in fifth. Jim Brewster coming home himself in sixth to win for the Masters. Leroy Coppage in seventh. Tom Grodwell in eighth. Johan Butenga, after his mistake and the earlier parts of the race, in ninth. In 10th, Theo Taylor.
In 11th place, it's going to be Chris Montgomery, just being eked out by Theo on the final lap. And Flavio Andalo is coming in 12th place. Excuse me, I had a bit of a voice crack there. David Davidson coming home 13th, and then it's going to be cars one lap down or over. Kenneth Badley, Alexander Roggenbrock, David Gaspers, Mats Sjöblom, Alexander Gorissen, and Antonio Rees.
Yeah, unfortunately for Antonio Rees, very unfortunate accident for him at the near side of the race. But we do have the race winner here with us, Rocco Horvath. A great race from you. Congratulations on your P1 in here at the Legends RC Charlotte layout. Take us through it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, such a complex track, such a technical track that man, it was just all about who was going to make the least amount of mistakes, really. And so that's all I was trying to do, just run a nice consistent pace, not make any mistakes, not hit that wall on the outside of turn 2, and yeah, it came together. I'm not really sure what happened to David, but I saw that he left the race. So yeah, good race.
Take me through that, by the way, because you did mention a good point. You did hit the wall slightly coming on out of 2. Were you just praying and hoping that it wasn't going to be another wall of champions where you sort of hit it and it's all over? And
yeah, sorry. I did hit the wall on the inside of 2 one time, and then it kind of, bounced me towards the outside. I think I avoided the outside wall, but luckily no damage there. I think I just barely clipped the tires on the inside. So yeah, the rest of the race I was making sure not to turn in too early after that. So yeah, it was all good.
And once you were sort of on your own, how surprised were you that Florence Arabian was sort of falling back? Because he's a very quick driver around the Formula V Weekend Warriors, and we were surprised as well. We just want to get your thoughts on it as well. What were you thinking, the fact that the gap was sort of extending? Were you happy about that, or were you concerned that it would lead to sort of a false sense of security, as it were?
Yeah, so I think it was probably like 10 or 15 laps into the race, I started catching David a little more, and then I noticed that Florence was kind of falling off. I wasn't entirely sure why. I thought maybe he was fuel saving a little bit, because we did have a driver that made it all the way to the end without having to stop for fuel, so I thought maybe that's what he was trying to do. So I was just keeping my head down, making sure to keep going, and then he didn't pit the same lap that I did, and so I was really concerned at that point and really started pushing, but luckily he came in the next lap.
And before we let you go, Rocco, any shout-outs or any congratulations or thanks that you'd like to give to anybody out there?
Yeah, thank you for you guys, for broadcasting the race. The Weekend Warrior series is a lot of fun. I wish I could do more of them. Shout out to the corner workers that had to pick up the cones for every other lap when me and David hit them over. But then also Delta Motorsports and my wife, who's pregnant with our first child. Thank you for letting me race on a Saturday afternoon. Appreciate it.
Well, you should be happy that you got a first place, Rocco.
Definitely.
Enjoy your P1, and I thank you very much for speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We do have, I think it is going to be Thomas Renders up next with us here in the booth, and Ossian has been catching up with him.
Yes, it is. We have the winner of the, the second place from the amateur class here, Thomas Renders. Thomas, it was a very good race for you. Right up until the end, you had great pace, you had good, consistent rhythm going on, and it seemed that the Charlotte infield road course really suited you. But were you surprised that Ian Gibson was able to do the whole race without pitting?
Actually, I was. I'm quite disappointed. I mean, kudos to him. It's a very good strategy, and yeah, he deserved it today. But I really thought I had it in the pocket.
Yeah, and in the end, it turned out to be a fourth place for you, but still a great achievement and a great result point-wise. How was it out there today? We saw a lot of drivers having difficulties with the banked corners. Did you think the track was more demanding than the usual course, or did you find home here very quickly?
Yeah, it's a very technical track, and it's definitely harder than the tracks we've driven on. But I did some iRacing officials a couple of weeks ago, and I already trained a bit because of that. So I was at home pretty quickly tonight. Yeah, the race was also pretty uneventful. I didn't have a real fight, but yeah, so I just tried to do my laps, and yeah, good result. Also championship wise, I'm hoping to do well in the spec too. So yeah, good result for today.
Yeah, and you can be very happy heading to Lime Rock and Oran Park to close out the season with that. Thomas, if you have any thank yous, any shoutouts, any thank yous to sponsors or greetings you'd like to give, then be sure to do so. Thomas Renders, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, just again, thank you for everybody who organizes this league. It's the Formula V and the SRF Weekend Warriors. It's a great league, a very fair league, and yeah, also thank you for broadcasting, because I do enjoy watching the show.
Thank you, Thomas, for the interview, and good luck. And
finally,
next up,
we do have Ian Gibson. Ian.
Hi.
Let me think of a word. I think I'm gonna call it the fuel saver of the year. How did you manage to do that?
Well, I mean, earlier in the day, I had done 28 laps on an 11-litre tank, and that's what we got in the race. And the race was 29 laps. I had a little bit of a mishap on, I think it was lap 2, that dropped me several positions, and I just thought, okay, the only way I'm going to be anywhere in this race is if I don't pit. So let's just save fuel. So I was just lifting and coasting everywhere. I used fourth gear around the back of the circuit with like only quarter throttle. I wasn't trying to get past people too quickly because I knew they were going to jump in the pits at some point. So I just spent the whole race half throttle, lifting and coasting where I could, making sure I didn't hit the wall, and it worked. I got the extra lap out of the fuel that I hadn't got when I tried it earlier.
Yeah, but were you expecting to, be so far up into third though, and the winner of amateur? And I would have imagined that you would have expected, some, consolation in positions, but third, I bet you were pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. I mean, I saw David had a problem because I saw him just before he disconnected, having passed. I actually hoped it could have been better than third, but I wasn't obviously lapping quick enough. I mean, yeah, and I couldn't lap any quicker because I was trying to make the fuel last. And yeah, I'm quite happy with where I ended up. Yeah, third's a good result.
And so, talk me through that as well, because you mentioned it before, but we did see you having to sort of dice your way around traffic. Were you just trying to let them by more than anything else and just catch the slipstream as it came, or were you actually trying to do battle, as it were, and try and keep the front of you clear, and just try and race your own race?
Well, nobody caught me to pass me. I don't think. I can't remember whether they did. But if basically there were groups of cars that I was sort of catching. I would catch them, and if they gave me the opportunity to pass, I would pass. But I wasn't fighting them for the places because I knew that they'd jump in the pits and get out of my way. So I was just cruising around behind them most of the time, wishing they'd pit this lap.
And just before we let you go, any shout-outs or any thanks you'd like to give?
I'd just like to thank everybody in this league and in all the weekend warriors. Makes iRacing great fun. You guys for broadcasting it. I'd like to say hello to my son Freddie, who is probably watching because he watches every week. I don't know whether he is or not because he's not here, but yeah, that's it really. Thanks for making it so much fun. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ian Gibson, and congratulations on third and win of amateur. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of festivities today, but we'd like to thank you guys for joining in with us. We'd like to thank our sponsor, ringfree.com, a unique VoIP for your essential business. Find out more at ringfree.com. Choose connection. We'd like to thank the Formula V Weekend Warriors and everybody that has joined in. Of course, a special thanks goes to the companies and the individuals that allow us to make GSRC a possibility. Additional thanks go to Julia Lund, who provide our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp page for more of her great work. And a special thanks to the team today, Ossian Puhaka, Sean Ambrose, and Dougie. You can find out more about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through the social medias listed on the screen. You can also check out the next races that are going up today and throughout the rest of the week. The next race will be at Lime Rock Classic at 8:45 p.m. British Summer Time on the 28th of August, or at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The rest of the races will be scrolling through your screen. Go check out BRL. It's very good. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we will see you on the track.